Well, hello there, and welcome to another edition of Warbird Wednesday. My name is Fred Bell. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum, and today we are continuing down Night Fighter Row with a very obscure airplane. This is an obscure airplane. Now, it came as a suggestion from an obscure person, Greg Kenny, who you never see on camera. He is my allocated assistant, and today he has coiffed me in a squid head. Is the best way I can. Does this have anything to do with the airplane? I didn't think so, but it is rather fetching, I must say, with the tendrils. I'm going to get it off because it's basically cutting off the circulation in my head. There we go to the Kenny, another low toss. He caught it. I'll kind of waft it in there. So today we are talking about the Bell, the YFM-1, the Airacuda. Now, the Airacuda is a very obscure, as I said, bomber-destroyer concept. Now, again, this is another one like the Defiant. Looked great on paper, and then when you try to actually make it happen, not so much. It was an interesting airplane. Y in this, in the prefix on the airplane, stood for service test. Did you know that? Y was service test, F was for fighter, and M was for multi-place. So that was the YFM-1. Now the Airacuda had a design speed of 272 miles per hour. Not very fast. You can already see where this is going. The first flight was in 1937. It was introed in 1940, and it was retired in 1942, at which time all of the airframes were scrapped. Nothing survives. There were 13 of them made, and they were built by Bell. Now, I'm going to use a identification plug, basically, that you would use in it when you were teaching aircraft identification, because this thing is really unique. So at this point, Greg can throw up a plan view of the airplane and some ideas on it. But let me talk about why this thing was so unique. I'm going to hold this up. Now, first of all, the aircraft was a pusher, which meant the propellers were on the back side of the wing on both sides. It was a two-engine airplane, twin-engine airplane. Now, in front, this is where it gets very interesting. The front portion of it was essentially a nacelle that had a turret in it. So there were turrets on the front of the aircraft. Now, those turrets carried a 37-millimeter cannon in each turret, plus a man in each turret. So think about that. You got guys out on the wings, on the leading edge, with 37-millimeter cannons, basically lobbing softballs out there, kind of. Now, Bell aircraft, and we're going to talk about, you could see where they went, especially with our, P-63. They were playing around with that real heavy armament because they were looking for that kill shot, and you hit somebody with a 37-millimeter cannon shell, it's game over. You're gonna down the airplane. So there were two guys out in front on this airplane. It was a pusher. There were the pilot, the co-pilot. There were some crew members in the fuselage that manned the rest of the guns. Okay, and that was essentially the airplane. Now, it was described by Bell designers as a mobile anti-aircraft platform. Now think about that for a second. Mobile anti-aircraft platform. They had thought about this as a night fighter at one point. It was certainly big enough. Now, when they built them, that's when we get into some interesting ideas. The first thing was, when they built the aircraft, if you lost an engine, they took it up and flew it. They lost 2 of them in testing. Surprising they didn't lose more when we talk about what we're going to talk about on the design, but they lost 2 of them in testing. Now, the interesting thing was when you lost a single engine with this aircraft, with the Airacuda, basically the airplane went into a spin. It was unrecoverable with a single engine failure. So they learned early on when they started testing it, and what they would do is they would shut an engine down, see what the airplane would do, and if the airplane went out of control. Now remember, in the P-63, early P-63s and the P-39s had what? A similar problem. If they went into a flat spin, they didn't have, in that case, they didn't have enough fuselage or tail in the wind to control the airplane in a flat spin, and it would go out. And as you know, I told you the P-63 was unrecoverable. The manual was open the door and get out of the airplane. You're done in a flat spin. I have had people tell me they can recover a P-63 in a flat spin. I am happy to go buy 2 cases of beer, have you take your P-63. I will sit there and watch you, and you recover that airplane all day long. Not me. I'm not doing it. But so the first thing is if you had a thrust imbalance in the airplane, you were done. Now, there was another problem, or another challenge. These are challenges when you're in experimental aircraft. If you had to bail out, if the nacelle people had to bail out, the gunners. Now, they were there, think about this. They were there primarily to load the cannons. They were not there to aim the cannons. The cannons had an electro-aiming a piece in it, but they were primary gun loaders, okay? So if you had to get out, the pilot had to feather the engine in order for you to bail out. There was no way to bail out of the nacelle unless you feathered the engine. So on a C-47 up front on the left, there's a door, and that door is called the sausage door. And why is it called the sausage door? It's quite simple. If you go out that door when the airplane is running, you are going to be sausage because you go into the prop. Fairly clear. This thing had the same problem. If you were in trouble and you had to get out in those nacelles, you were dead. I mean, unless the pilot could figure out how, well, I guess if the engine were blown off or something like that, you might be able to get out. But the pilot had to consciously feather the engine to get out. Now, the other thing was the aircraft. There were a lot of interest. You can see why this airplane kind of went to the scrap heap. But it is a really good conversation, because I'll tell you why before we get done with this. Bell learned a lot from this airplane, and I'll tell you where they put it to good use. But the other problem was it was way too heavy. When they tried to dogfight it, it was 272 in optimum conditions. The airplane, unlike the ME-110, which could actually dogfight, the BF-110 for you aficionados, the BF-110, you could actually dogfight with the airplane. And some of the heavier twins, you could do that. The P-61, they were relatively fast, and you could dogfight. This thing, forget it. So they messed around with different engine and power plant configurations, and they had challenges also with cooling. They could not, in the entire program, they could not figure out how to get adequate cooling to the engines. Probably, in my view, because you got that big nacelle up there with the 37 millimeter cannon, and you've got 12-cylinder engines, and there's just not enough airflow up there to breathe those engines to get them to breathe. So we knew that was a challenge. Now, I'm going to give you the most interesting challenge of all, Greg. This was the most interesting challenge of all. And that is that, now this is, and I'm going to tell you on the back side of my presentation here, after we get through with the drink and the salute, as to what Bell learned from this, but the Bell aircraft. But the thing that was most unique about this airplane is the aircraft was the first aircraft to fly with an auxiliary power unit, an APU. The APU ran everything. Your gear, your flaps, all your hydraulics, everything in the airplane. If the APU failed, you had no control of the airplane whatsoever. The only thing you could do is bail out. And that's a bad thing with an APU. The APU, up to that time, the power would have come off the engines or somewhere else, but no airplane ran off of an auxiliary power unit at that time. And you can see why when they came out of this design, they said, yeah, not so good. So we're not going to do that. Now, with my wonderful assistant today, who recommended this airplane. He has also gone all out. We're back to Lester's Fixin', the fiend that is Lester's Fixin', because it was too good for me to have a tasty beverage. Now I'm back to horchata soda. Horchata soda. Get your fixin'. What? I'm going to show my ignorance here. Horchata? Anything? No, nothing at all. Greg's just sitting there smiling, waiting for me to have to try to endure this. 170 calories. They put American flag on the label now. I know Chester well enough to know that he's upgraded his labels. Spring water. There is a recycling tag on this, so this isn't 3 million years old. Pure cane sugar. Pure cane sugar mafia. It is cold, so whatever I'm about to try to drink here, I am going to do it at least cold, which is not bad. It will fizz, so it's fresh. So the salute today is to Bell Aircraft. Bell Aircraft, if you think about it, this airplane was never going to go anywhere. It was essentially, I think, a test bed aircraft, the Airacuda, but they took a lot of what they used there, and Bell built amazing airplanes. What else did they built? They built the X-1, right? Glamorous Glennis. I mean, they did other stuff. So they learned from all of their engineering, I wouldn't say failures, challenges. Let's say they're challenges. So if you were Bell Aircraft, and I haven't met anybody that's been with Bell Aircraft in a long time, but I'm sure there are people out there, for all of the innovation that Bell Aircraft had, I salute you. Ooh. Oh. Ah. Yuck. Yeah, look, Greg's, take another slide. That's just disgusting. How could you even bottle this? Oh my word. I am going to find out where Lester is and make him drink his sodas at gunpoint. That's vile. I don't even know why you would bottle that. Oh, I'm going to have to go brush my teeth after this episode. That is disgusting. Anyways, all right, get back into composure here. Greg, this one just about knocked me complete offline here. All right, so the whole thing on the guns, on the forward nacelles, again, great idea. Imagine all that firepower up there, and if you could actually bring it to bear on a bomber stream, that's nasty stuff. But the reality was the airplane at 272 miles an hour was probably not fast enough to run down some of the fastest bombers, and it wasn't maneuverable enough. Just overall, the spin characteristics. Now, where did Bell go with this? Bell built the P-39 and the P-63. They incorporated that heavy cannon into both of those airplanes, so they did that. And then on the P-63, the interesting thing about the P-63 is it is either the first or one of the first all-electric aircraft. So they figured out how to incorporate some of the control angles on the airplane, some of the control nodes, but they realized that you couldn't do an APU. The P-63 does not have an APU. It runs off internal power, but they incorporated all those flight control elements into it and made it all electric. The landing gear is electric. There are big advantages to that. There are also disadvantages to that. If the electrical wires get damaged, if the motor gets damaged, as opposed to a hydraulic airplane where you just pull the thing and the gear kind of falls out of the airplane. But all aircraft kind of went down that road now to where everything is, primarily most everything is electric. That's where it went. So Bell was a real forerunner on that. But they realized that by the end of 1941, now we're at war at this time, that this airplane just wasn't going to cut it. And by 1942, all of the airplanes were scrapped. They're gone. So think about that. In the middle of the war, they dismantled all of them and sent them to scrap heap, and who knows what happened to them. Now, there were other comparable airplanes. If you're doing research at home on this, the Curtiss, the XP-71, the Vickers, the 414, and of course the BF-110, which we've talked about at great length. But this is an airplane that actually made it into a squadron test, with a full squadron, and then they just realized, no, let's not spend any more time on this. This is an absolute dead end. But Bell rose from the ashes and came up with some other interesting aircraft. Now, if you want to make a decision to relive World War II, you can do this with World War II Monopoly. You can decide how you want to spend your resources, which is quite exciting, and you can do that with your friends and family. This is a great game. If you want to click on the link, you can have Jason send you one of these. He will happily run down to the store or to the post office and send you one of these from our stores. Click on the link for that. So we need your donations, and we cannot do what we do without them. And I'm standing in front of another YPT aircraft today, or a service test airplane, which is the WACO, the YPT-14. We cannot keep these airplanes flying without your donations, and we would love to have that. So, as I said, click on that link below. If you came across us on YouTube, we surely would like your subscription. Forward us to somebody who is a Warbird aficionado. If you can get past the horrible soda and whatever scary hat that Greg picks for me each week, we do nothing but military aircraft, and you have somebody in your family or somebody who's a Warbird aficionado, forward us on. If you see us on Facebook, give us a comment and a like. We appreciate that very much. My name is Fred Bell. I am the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum. Thanks very much. Have a great day.